What the is going on, bro? This is...
On the evening of
What if the world is not calming down, but accelerating towards something we are not ready to face? A stone slides across silent desert ground. Water erupts from the heart of a tree. Clouds bulge and darken as if breathing. Serpent-shaped formation coils across the sky. Stranded shadow hovers above still water. Streaks of light flash and veer unpredictably. The sky splits into opposing halves. Black ring forms and refuses to fade. 3 orange lights glide in perfect formation. Metallic cube cuts through open air. 10 signs, 10 events unfolding across the United States and even around the world. 10 shocks appeared faster and closer than anyone expected. Alone, each may seem random, but together they begin to form a pattern that is impossible to ignore. Have you noticed how different the sky has been lately? Have you ever seen something that made you stop and question reality? If these signs are not random, where are they leading us? And how much time do we really have left? Don't look away, because the first sign is about to unfold. 1. The desert, where stones move on their own. Across the silent floor of Racetrack Playa in Death Valley, massive stones rest on cracked earth beneath a sky that seems frozen in time. Then, something unsettling happens. Without witnesses, without sound, without visible force, the rocks begin to move. Long trails carve across the dry ground as if an invisible hand has guided them forward. The desert no longer feels empty. What should be immovable drifts slowly, turning stillness into something intentional rather than accidental. These stones, some weighing hundreds of pounds, leave tracks stretching dozens of meters behind them. The paths twist, intersect, and change direction, suggesting motion that is deliberate rather than random. No footprints surround them, no machinery disturbs the surface, only silent lines etched into dust. Observers who study the phenomenon describe it as rare, yet the repetition makes it harder to dismiss. Day after day, the desert writes new marks, as if the ground itself is responding to a command beyond human sight, stirring curiosity and unease at the same time. Psalm 77-18 reminds us that creation itself can move under divine authority. The voice of your thunder was in the whirlwind. The lightning lit up the world. The earth trembled and shook. These words describe a world not fixed, but responsive, a creation that shifts when God speaks. When stones slide across empty land without human touch, many believers see more than a natural curiosity. They see a quiet echo of a world that still answers to its creator, even in the most desolate places. Some explanations mention wind, thin ice, and rare conditions. Yet delicate forces guiding massive rocks in complex paths leave lingering doubt. The movement appears purposeful, almost symbolic, as if the desert is nudging humanity to pay attention. Instead of resolving the mystery, the explanations highlight how little control we truly have. Job 38-14 describes the earth in a striking image. It is turned like clay to the seal, and they stand out like a garment. The verse portrays the ground itself being shaped, impressed, and marked. When the desert floor records the movement of stones as if pressed by an unseen seal, the similarity becomes difficult to ignore. It feels as though the earth is quietly displaying signs, shaping patterns that call observers to reflect on something greater than coincidence. If even stones in the wilderness begin to move without human touch, what does that say about the time we are living in? A silent desert becomes a messenger, hinting that the foundations of the world may not be as still as they seem. And if the ground itself is shifting, perhaps this is only the beginning. Because while these stones glide quietly across empty land, other signs are already appearing, drawing us step by step toward something far more unsettling. 2. Water bursting from solid wood. In a quiet landscape, a tree stands like any other, rooted firmly in the soil, silent and ordinary. Then, the impossible begins. From the solid trunk, water suddenly bursts outward, flowing with surprising force as if a hidden spring has awakened inside the wood. The ground around it darkens as the stream continues, steady and relentless. There are no pipes, no nearby sources, no storm clouds above. The tree appears to be releasing something from deep within, transforming a familiar image of nature into a moment filled with unease and wonder. The footage shows water pouring continuously, not dripping, but streaming, as though the tree itself has become a vessel. Observers stare in disbelief, trying to understand how liquid can surge from hardened wood. The flow does not weaken quickly, and the persistence adds weight to the mystery. It feels less like a coincidence and more like a sign emerging from the earth. The stillness of the environment contrasts with the movement, amplifying the sensation that something beneath the surface has been stirred. Isaiah 41:18 speaks of unexpected water appearing in unlikely places. I will open rivers in desolate heights and fountains in the midst of the valleys. I will make the wilderness a pool of water, and the dry land springs of water. These words describe transformation, guided by divine authority, where dryness gives way to sudden abundance. When water pours from a tree in a place where none should exist, many believers see an echo of that promise, a reminder that creation itself can shift at God's command. Some suggest underground pressure or hidden channels, yet none explain why the water erupts from solid wood itself. The stream emerges from what appears to be an intact trunk, not exposed roots or cracks. Instead of resolving the mystery, the explanations deepen it, leaving the impression that something unseen may be at work. Exodus 17:6 offers another powerful image. Behold, I will stand before you there on the rock in Horeb, and you shall strike the rock, and water will come out of it, that the people may drink. In that moment, water flowed from something lifeless, turning stone into provision. When a tree releases water without human intervention, it recalls that ancient demonstration of power, suggesting that even the most solid forms of creation remain under divine authority. If water can surge from a tree without warning, then the ground beneath us may be speaking in ways we rarely notice. The earth, the roots, and the hidden depths seem to respond to forces beyond human understanding. And if this sign rises quietly from the soil, perhaps the next one will not remain confined to the ground, but begin to reshape the sky above. 3. Bulging clouds pressing down. While driving through the quiet countryside of Europe, a man looks up and notices the sky transforming into something unsettling. Large clouds stretch across the horizon, but beneath them hang rounded, pouch-like formations swelling downward, as if the heavens themselves are breathing. The shapes appear heavy, layered, and uneven, casting rippling shadows across the land. Instead of drifting gently, the clouds seem to pulse, forming a ceiling that feels lower and more oppressive. The peaceful sky turns into a moving structure. Suddenly, the sky no longer feels distant, but dangerously close. The formations gather in clusters, each bulge distinct, like pockets suspended from a darker mass above. The texture looks unnatural to many viewers, almost sculpted rather than formed. The sky no longer appears distant and open, but thick and weighted, as if something is pressing downward. People online debate what they are seeing, yet the visual impact remains powerful. The rounded shapes resemble something alive, something watching, something waiting. The feeling that the heavens are changing begins to grow stronger, pulling attention upward with unease. Luke 21:25 speaks of signs appearing above humanity, and there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. This verse describes confusion and fear connected to disturbances in the heavens. When the sky forms unusual patterns that unsettle those who see them, believers often remember that warnings were foretold long ago. The unusual clouds feel less like decoration and more like signals written across the sky. Some meteorological explanations describe these formations as rare atmospheric conditions, yet the scale and timing make them difficult to dismiss. The clouds resemble a curtain lowering slowly, suggesting preparation rather than randomness. As the shapes expand, the landscape beneath them seems smaller, as though humanity is being overshadowed by something greater. Jeremiah 4:28 delivers a solemn image. For this shall the earth mourn, and the heavens above be black. Because I have spoken it, I have purposed it, and will not relent. The verse connects darkened skies with divine declaration. When clouds gather in heavy, swelling forms, casting an unusual darkness, the resemblance to this warning becomes striking. The heavens appear to shift from passive background to active messenger, urging attention and reflection. If the sky can swell and darken like this, then these may not be isolated formations, but early warnings written above us. The ground moved, the earth released water, and now the heavens themselves begin to change shape. Even the sky has started to breathe. Something even more symbolic may soon emerge within those shifting clouds. 4. A symbol coiling across heavens. In the quiet evening skies of Alaska, a couple steps outside expecting nothing unusual, yet within seconds their attention is pulled upward. A long, narrow formation begins to stretch across the sky, shaped unmistakably like a serpent gliding through the air. The cloud moves slowly, deliberately, leaving a faint trailing line behind it, as though carving a path across the heavens. The motion feels intentional rather than random. The atmosphere turns uneasy, and what should be harmless mist takes on a symbolic weight that is difficult to ignore. The elongated form twists gently, maintaining its shape as it travels forward. Unlike scattered clouds, this formation holds together, resembling a living figure drifting above the earth. Viewers who later watched the footage debated its origin, yet many focused on its appearance rather than its cause. The serpent shape carries deep meaning across cultures, and here it appears silently in the sky, suspended above homes and forests. The calm movement makes it even more unsettling, as if something symbolic has chosen to reveal itself in the heavens. Genesis 3:1 introduces one of the most powerful symbols in Scripture. Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, "Has God indeed said, 'You shall not eat of every tree of the garden'?" This verse connects the serpent with deception and spiritual testing. When a serpent-shaped cloud glides across the sky, believers may see more than coincidence. The imagery recalls an ancient narrative, suggesting that symbolic warnings may still appear in forms that humanity recognizes instinctively. Some observers suggest it is only a rare cloud formation shaped by wind currents. Yet the clarity of the shape and the slow, steady motion create lingering doubt. The cloud does not quickly dissolve, but maintains its serpent-like form long enough to leave a strong impression. The symbolism remains, even if the explanation seems simple. It is not just the shape itself, but the feeling that the sky is presenting imagery with meaning, urging reflection rather than dismissal. Revelation 12:9 deepens the symbolism. So, the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old, called the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth. Then, and his angels were cast out with him. This passage identifies the serpent as a sign of spiritual conflict. When the sky briefly mirrors this form, many see it as a reminder that unseen struggles may still influence the world. The cloud becomes more than vapor. It becomes an image that points toward deeper spiritual realities. The heavens begin to display symbols so clearly tied to ancient warnings. Perhaps these are not random shapes drifting overhead. Now, a serpent form crosses the sky itself. And if such imagery has appeared once, it raises the question of what darker shape might soon follow, lingering even more heavily above the world. 5. Dark cloud frozen in place. During a peaceful lake vacation in Canada, a couple looks out across calm water, expecting nothing unusual. Then, a dark mass appears, suspended above the surface. Unlike passing clouds, this formation seems isolated, almost trapped in place. It hovers without drifting, dense and heavy, as if held by an unseen force. The reflection in the still lake intensifies the image, creating the impression of something hanging between sky and earth. The quiet setting deepens the unease, turning a relaxing moment into silent tension. The cloud appears compact and darker than the surrounding sky, strangely motionless. It does not stretch or dissolve. Instead, it lingers, maintaining its shape as if something inside is contained. Observers describe it as alive, as though the formation is struggling to break free. The sky, once open and peaceful, now feels restrained, as if holding something back, as though something inside it is waiting to be released. Ephesians 6:12 reminds us of unseen forces. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against rulers of the darkness in the heavenly places. The verse speaks of darkness present above, not visible yet real. When a heavy cloud hangs motionless, many see a symbolic echo of spiritual tension, as if the heavens themselves reflect an unseen struggle. Some suggest localized weather conditions, yet the sense of confinement remains difficult to ignore. The cloud does not behave like others that drift freely. It appears fixed, weighted, and restrained. Instead of easing the mystery, explanations only reinforce the impression that something is being held back. Joel 2:30 warns of signs in the heavens. I will show wonders, blood and fire, and pillars of smoke. Darkened skies are described as signals before significant events. When a shadow lingers unnaturally, it feels less like coincidence and more like a quiet warning. If a single dark formation can hover as though restrained, what happens when that restraint is lifted? Symbols have appeared, and now darkness itself seems to pause above us. And if this shadow is only waiting, the next sign may not remain still, but begin to move with far greater urgency. 6. Lights race across the sky. Under a dark night sky, a man begins recording what appears to be a normal meteor shower. At first, the streaks of light seem familiar, flashing briefly before fading. Then, the movement changes. More lights appear, faster, sharper, cutting across the sky in multiple directions. Some streaks bend, others slow, and a few seem to alter their paths entirely. The heavens no longer resemble a predictable display. Instead, the sky fills with motion that feels urgent, almost chaotic, as if signals are being written in rapid succession above the earth. The number of streaks increases, creating a pattern that overwhelms the calm of the night. Bright lines ignite, cross, and vanish, leaving the observer frozen between awe and concern. This is no longer a single meteor, but a sequence that feels coordinated. The unpredictability intensifies the tension, suggesting something beyond routine celestial activity. Each flash appears like a message that disappears before it can be fully understood, yet together they form a restless movement that commands attention. Luke 21:11 speaks of disturbances in the heavens. There will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. This verse connects unusual celestial displays with warnings for humanity. When the sky erupts in rapid flashes of light, many believers recall that such sights were foretold to awaken those watching. Some suggest intensified meteor activity or space debris, yet the unusual paths and sudden changes in direction create lingering doubt. The lights do not simply fall, they appear to move with urgency, intersecting in ways that feel deliberate. The sky no longer seems calm, but active, as though communicating something unfolding in real time. Revelation 6:13 describes stars falling suddenly. The stars of heaven fell to the earth, shaken by a mighty wind. When repeated streaks flash across the sky, the resemblance becomes striking. The heavens appear restless, preparing for something larger. If the lights above begin to move with such urgency, then the stillness of earlier signs is fading. Now, the sky ignited with motion. And if these lights are only the beginning, the next sign may divide the heavens themselves in a way no one can ignore. 7. Sky splits in two, drawing a line drawn between light and darkness. During a calm evening walk, a man looks up and freezes as the sky reveals something almost impossible. One half appears bright and illuminated, while the other remains dark and heavy. A sharp line divides the heavens, as if someone had drawn it across the sky. The contrast is striking, as though light and shadow have been separated intentionally. The peaceful sky suddenly becomes dramatic, turning a simple moment into a powerful image that feels symbolic rather than accidental. The division remains visible long enough to spark confusion. Viewers debate what they are seeing, yet the clarity of the separation is difficult to dismiss. The brightness on one side feels calm, while the darker half carries weight and tension. The sky no longer feels unified, but split between opposing conditions, as if revealing a boundary that should not normally be seen. Genesis 1-4 describes a foundational separation. God divided the light from the darkness. When the sky appears divided between brightness and shadow, many see a visual echo of this moment. The contrast suggests more than weather. It hints at meaning, reminding observers that light and darkness have always represented deeper spiritual truths. Some suggest unusual lighting or atmospheric conditions. Yet the precision of the line leaves lingering doubt. The sky does not blend gradually, but splits clearly. The image feels less like coincidence and more like a reminder, as if the heavens are briefly revealing a choice between two paths. Matthew 25-32 speaks of a future division. He will separate them one from another. When the sky itself appears separated, many interpret it as a reflection of that coming distinction. The heavens seem to mirror a decision that cannot be avoided. The warnings are becoming more direct. If this separation has already appeared above us, the next sign may not only divide the sky, but form something even more unsettling within it. 8. Black ring hanging above all. Over the skies of Kansas, an unusual shape appears and immediately captures attention. A dark ring forms in the air, nearly perfect in its circular outline, hovering silently above the landscape. It does not scatter like ordinary smoke. Instead, it holds its structure, drifting slowly as if suspended by an unseen force. People stop and stare, raising their phones, trying to understand what they are witnessing. The sky, once open and calm, now contains a symbol that feels deliberate, almost like a mark placed above the world. The ring remains intact as it moves, its edges defined and its center hollow. This emptiness gives it an even more unsettling presence, as though it represents a boundary or a sign. Observers debate its origin, but the visual impression stays strong. A perfect circle appearing in darkness suggests completeness, enclosure, and warning. The shape does not flicker or disperse immediately. It lingers long enough to leave an imprint on those who see it, reinforcing the sense that the heavens are displaying something intentional. Revelation 9-2 describes a darkening in the sky connected to judgment. And he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit. This verse portrays smoke rising and altering the sky itself. When a dark ring of smoke forms and hangs above the land, believers may recall this imagery, seeing a resemblance that feels more symbolic than coincidental. Some explanations suggest controlled explosions or unusual atmospheric effects. Yet the symmetry of the ring and the stillness of its motion create doubt. Smoke typically disperses irregularly, but this formation appears measured, contained, and almost purposeful. The more observers analyze it, the more the sense of meaning grows. Instead of calming the moment, the explanations highlight how unusual the formation truly is, reinforcing the idea that the heavens may be displaying a warning. Isaiah 66:15-16 presents a solemn image. For behold, the Lord will come with fire, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger with fury, and his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword the Lord will judge all flesh, and all. The imagery of fire and smoke connected to judgment deepens the interpretation. When a dark ring lingers above the earth, some see it as a symbolic reminder that the sky itself can carry signs of accountability. If a perfect ring can appear and hover as though marking the heavens, then the warnings seem to grow more deliberate. The earth shifted, the sky divided, and now a symbol forms above humanity. And if this sign marks the sky so clearly, the next one may not only appear, but move with intention, as though guided across the horizon. 9. Orange lights move in perfect formation. On the evening of the 4th of August 2025, a quiet lake in Maine reflects a calm sky until 3 orange lights appear without warning. They glow steadily, suspended above the water, then begin moving together in precise formation. The motion is smooth and controlled, as if each light is aware of the others. The reflection shimmers on the lake's surface, doubling the image and intensifying the moment. The still environment contrasts with the deliberate movement, creating a sense that these lights are not drifting randomly, but traveling with purpose. The 3 lights maintain equal spacing, neither colliding nor separating. Their path remains steady, gliding silently across the sky. Observers watch in awe, unable to identify any aircraft or sound. The symmetry of the formation suggests coordination, almost like a silent escort. The scene feels measured and intentional, inviting reflection rather than panic. The calm pace slows the tension, yet the deliberate pattern deepens the mystery, hinting that what is being seen may carry meaning beyond simple coincidence. Zechariah 4:2 describes a striking vision. And he said to me, "What do you see?" So I said, I am looking, and there is a lampstand of solid gold with a bowl on top of it. And on the stand 7 lamps, with 7 pipes to the 7 lamps. This imagery of lights, arranged in purposeful order, suggests structure and intention. When glowing lights move in formation across the sky, believers may see a faint echo of divine symbolism, where illumination appears not randomly, but in organized display. Some suggest distant aircraft or atmospheric reflections, yet the absence of sound and the steady spacing leave doubt. The lights do not flicker erratically, nor do they disperse. Instead, they travel calmly, almost guiding one another. The peaceful motion contrasts with earlier chaotic signs, creating the impression that something is being directed. The stillness of the lake below enhances the feeling that the moment is meant to be observed and remembered. Matthew 24-27 speaks of sudden, visible signs. For as the lightning comes from the east and flashes to the west, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. The verse highlights visibility and movement across the sky. When lights glide in coordinated paths, some see a reminder that the heavens can display signs meant to draw attention and reflection. The formation becomes more than illumination. It becomes a quiet invitation to consider purpose. If lights can move together with such calm precision, then the signs may no longer be random or chaotic. The sky has shown motion, division, and symbols, and now it reveals coordination. These lights travel as though guided, but the next sign may not only move with intention, it appeared in a form even more defined and impossible to ignore. 10. Metallic cube cuts through the sky. High above Colombia, during a routine flight, a pilot films the open sky, expecting nothing unusual. Then, a metallic object appears, moving in a perfectly straight line across the horizon. As the camera zooms in, the shape becomes clearer. It resembles a cube, defined and rigid, gliding without visible wings or propulsion. The motion is steady and controlled, cutting through the air with unnatural precision. Unlike earlier signs that formed gradually, this object arrives suddenly, distinct and unmistakable, turning the sky into a stage for something that feels deliberate and final. The cube maintains its form as it travels, not rotating wildly, not drifting like debris. Its edges appear sharp, reflecting light briefly before continuing forward. Observers struggle to compare it with anything familiar. The movement lacks the irregularity of natural objects. Instead, it suggests structure and intention. The speed adds urgency, as though the moment is brief but significant. The sky no longer displays symbols alone, but a defined figure moving with purpose, intensifying the sense that the sequence is reaching a climax. Revelation 21:16 describes perfect symmetry. The city is laid out as a square. Its length, breadth, and height are equal. When a cube-shaped object appears in the sky, some recall imagery of precise form and completion. The defined geometry contrasts with randomness, suggesting intention rather than coincidence. Some suggest balloons or perspective, yet the object never wobbles. It moves with precision, as if guided. The simplicity of the cube intensifies its impact, as though the sky itself is presenting a sign of finality. Earlier warnings hinted and stirred attention, but this one appears firm and decisive. Revelation 20:12 speaks of accountability and conclusion. When a structured form crosses the sky after a series of signs, many interpret it as a reminder that warnings may lead toward a final reckoning. The earth moved, water emerged, clouds transformed, darkness hovered, lights flashed, the sky divided, and symbols appeared. Now a structured figure cuts across the heavens, clear and unmistakable. If these signs unfold step by step, the message becomes difficult to ignore. The progression moves from quiet hints to decisive imagery, urging reflection and awakening before time runs out. From stones moving across silent desert ground to water flowing from a tree, the journey began with quiet disturbances in creation. Then the sky changed. Bulging clouds pressed downward, a serpent-shaped formation crossed the heavens, and a dark, stranded cloud hovered as if something unseen was being held back. Trails of light raced overhead. The sky split between brightness and darkness, and a black ring appeared suspended above humanity. 3 lights moved in calm formation, and finally, a metallic cube crossed the sky with striking precision. Together, These 10 signs form a progression that feels less random and more like a pattern, echoing biblical reminders that creation itself can point toward a deeper spiritual awakening. These moments are not only about fear, but about reflection. They invite us to slow down, to pray, and to place our trust in God while there is still time. If these signs have stirred something in your heart, take a moment to speak a prayer. You can also write your prayer or your thoughts in the comments, because your words may encourage someone else searching for hope in uncertain times. If this message touched you, consider liking this video, sharing it with others, and subscribing so you do not miss future reflections. Thank you for watching. May God bless you and your family with peace, protection, and strength. May your homes be filled with calm and your hearts guided by faith. Amen. Are the signs we were warned about already happening right now, while most of us aren't paying attention? The sky behaves in ways that feel unfamiliar. Two suns appear on opposite sides, clouds gather into a shape that looks like it's watching, and fireballs cut across the sky, then shift direction mid-air. A ghostly ship emerges through dense fog, glowing before disappearing, while a swarm rises and twists into a living vortex. Nothing lasts, but every single one leaves the same question behind, and it's getting harder to ignore. In other places, the impossible feels even closer. A sacred face forms where it shouldn't exist. Ancient writings resurface with warnings that sound disturbingly familiar, and storms grow more violent as people gather and pray with urgency. New monuments rise, not just as symbols, while a quiet sense of tension spreads across different parts of the world. These events don't feel isolated anymore. They build, overlap, and point towards something larger. Have you noticed how different everything feels lately? Or are we ignoring it because the truth is too unsettling? Don't look away, because this is where it all begins. 1. Bizarre swarm that darkened the sky. In a quiet town in Romania, an ordinary day slowly shifted into something far more unsettling when people began to notice a dark mass forming above them. At first it looked like a distant cloud, but it moved too fast, too tightly, twisting into a shape that did not belong to the calm sky around it. As the mass thickened, it began to spiral, stretching upward into a towering column that seemed almost alive. The light dimmed beneath it, and the air itself felt heavier, as if something unseen had taken hold of the space above their heads. Those who stood and watched described a strange stillness mixed with a low, constant hum, the sound of countless wings beating in perfect unison. It was not chaotic like a storm, but organized, deliberate, as if every movement followed a hidden command. Thousands, perhaps millions, moved as one, forming a living vortex that felt less like nature and more like something directed. No single insect could create fear on its own, yet together they became something overwhelming, something that felt larger than the sum of its parts. In that moment, nature did not feel random. It felt coordinated in a way that was difficult to understand. Joel 2:25 offers words that now seem to carry a deeper meaning. So I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the crawling locust, the consuming locust, and the chewing locust, my great army which I sent among you. The idea of a swarm, described as an army, introduces a perspective that shifts how such moments are seen, suggesting that even the smallest creatures can be gathered and directed with purpose. When a swarm moves not as many, but as one, it begins to resemble something intentional rather than accidental. Some would later say it was simply a natural phenomenon, a seasonal gathering driven by instinct and environment. Yet that explanation does not fully quiet the feeling left behind by those who witnessed it. It was not only the sight of the swarm, but the precision, the density, and the way it seemed to claim the sky for a brief moment. It did not scatter easily. It held its form, as though resisting the very randomness it was supposed to represent. That quiet resistance is what continues to trouble the memory of those who saw it. Revelation 9:3 speaks in a way that feels uncomfortably vivid when recalling such scenes. Then, out of the smoke, locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. While separated by time and context, the imagery of a swarm carrying presence and force lingers in the mind, raising questions that are not easily dismissed. When something so small can gather into something so commanding, it invites a deeper reflection on what might be guiding it. If a swarm can rise, organize, and darken the sky with such unity, then perhaps it is not only about what was seen, but about what it represents. Moments like this do not end when the swarm disperses. They remain as quiet questions waiting to be answered. And if this was only a subtle sign, a gentle beginning written across the sky, then what comes next may not be so easy to overlook. Two suns appeared at the same time before everyone's eyes. In the vast expanse of Saudi Arabia, a moment unfolded that shattered one of the most basic truths people had always trusted. As the day began, one sun rose as expected, casting light across the horizon. But at the same time, another radiant sphere appeared in the opposite direction, glowing with a presence that felt just as real. It was not a fleeting reflection or a faint illusion, but a second source of light standing firm against everything the sky was supposed to be. For those who witnessed it, the shock was immediate, because the sky had always been a symbol of order, and now that order seemed to be breaking apart. People stared in disbelief, turning their heads from one horizon to the other, trying to reconcile what their eyes were seeing with what their minds knew to be true. Two suns, separated by distance, holding their positions as if the laws that govern day and night had suddenly been interrupted. The moment carried a strange stillness, not the calm of peace, but the silence of confusion, where no explanation could settle the growing unease. Luke 21:25 speaks with a clarity that now feels deeply unsettling. And there will be signs in the sun, in the moon, and in the stars, and on the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. The word perplexity echoes strongly here, capturing exactly what filled the minds of those who stood beneath that divided sky. Some tried to explain it away, but the more they spoke, the less it seemed to fit what people had actually seen. The symmetry, the brightness, and the distance between the two lights left many unconvinced. It was not just what they saw, but how it felt, as though something fundamental had shifted, something that could not easily be returned to normal. The sky no longer felt predictable, and that alone was enough to disturb those who had always looked to it as a constant. Matthew 24:29 delivers a warning that deepens the weight of such moments. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. When the heavens themselves begin to show signs of instability, those ancient words no longer feel distant or symbolic, but present and unfolding. The idea that the powers of the heavens will be shaken begins to take on a more literal and unsettling meaning. If the sun, the very anchor of time and life, can appear divided and uncertain, then what else is beginning to shift beyond recognition? This was not just a strange sight. It was a warning written across the sky, a disruption that challenges the belief that everything remains as it has always been. The heavens are already showing signs of change, and what follows on the earth may arrive faster and far more forcefully than anyone is prepared for. 3. The ark that emerged from the fog before anyone was ready. On a fog-covered highway in Dalian, what appeared that night did not feel like coincidence. It felt like a warning returning. Out of the dense mist, a massive ship slowly revealed itself, ancient in form, silent in motion, glowing faintly as if it carried a presence from another time. It did not belong to the modern world, yet it moved with certainty, gliding forward before fading back into nothing. For a brief moment, it was no longer just a ship, It looked like an ark, something that appears before judgment, not after. Drivers stopped, caught between fear and disbelief, watching as the impossible unfolded with unsettling calm. The vessel did not drift aimlessly. It moved with direction, steady and controlled, as if guided by something unseen. The fog did not hide it, it framed it, revealing just enough for recognition. That precision made the moment heavier, because it did not feel accidental. It felt placed. In that silence, the mind does not search for logic. It reaches for memory, something ancient, something already written. Genesis 6:17 carries a weight that now feels uncomfortably close. And behold, I myself am bringing floodwaters on the earth, to destroy from under heaven all flesh in which is the breath of life. Everything that is on the earth shall die. In the days of Noah, the ark was never just a structure. It was a visible warning that time was already running out. It offered salvation to some, but at the same time confirmed that judgment had already begun. Some may call it an illusion, light bending through fog, a rare trick of perspective, but explanations struggle to erase what was felt in that moment. The clarity of its form, the stillness of its movement, and the way it appeared and vanished without chaos leave behind something deeper than confusion. It does not fade like a mistake, it lingers like a message. Matthew 24-37 echoes with unsettling relevance. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. The warning in those words is not loud, but it is clear. In Noah's time, the sign stood in plain sight, while the world continued as normal, unaware of how close everything was to changing. Whether it was real or not, almost stops mattering. What lingers is the feeling that something has already been revealed, quietly, briefly, and not without reason. Before that feeling could settle, the sky itself began to change in a way no one was prepared for. Red glow that covered the night. On another night, under a sky that should have remained still, darkness did not behave the way it was supposed to. A deep red glow began to spread above the highway, slowly at first, then with a presence that felt overwhelming. It was not a passing light or a distant reflection. It was heavy, unnatural, pressing down from above as if the sky itself had changed. It didn't just light the sky, it changed the feeling of the night itself. The air grew quiet in a way that did not bring peace, but tension. The red did not flicker or fade, it held its ground, surrounding everything beneath it in a dim, blood-like hue. Fog reflected the color, amplifying it, trapping the moment in a space that felt closed off from the rest of the world. This was no longer just a strange sight, it felt like an atmosphere shifting, like something unseen had taken hold of the sky. Joel 2:30-31 speaks with a force that now feels impossible to ignore. And I will show wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood and fire and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the coming of the great and awesome day of the Lord. The imagery is not subtle. It speaks of transformation, of the sky itself becoming a sign that something greater is unfolding. Some may explain it as particles in the air, light scattering through fog, an unusual but natural effect. Yet the explanation does not settle the deeper unease. It is not only what was seen, but what was felt. A shift, quiet but undeniable. The memory does not disappear because it does not feel empty. It feels intentional. Revelation 6:12 deepens that weight even further. And I looked when he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as a sackcloth of hair, and the moon became like blood. When the sky reflects such imagery, even briefly, it becomes difficult to dismiss it as coincidence alone. The night eventually returned to normal, but something had already changed, not in the sky, but in the way it was remembered. Because when the heavens begin to resemble the warnings that have been written for centuries, the question is no longer what caused it, but what it is pointing toward. What followed did not stay still long enough to be ignored. 5. The eye that has been watching from above. In a small town in Mongolia, the sky revealed something so precise, so perfectly formed, that it stopped people where they stood. High above, the clouds gathered into the shape of a single, enormous eye. Its outline is unmistakable, its center glowing with a soft but focused light. It did not drift like ordinary clouds. It held its form, clear and intentional, as if it had been placed there for a reason. For those who looked up, the feeling was immediate, not just amazement, but a quiet awareness that they were no longer simply observing the sky, they were being observed by it. The longer it remained, the more unsettling its presence became. This was not a vague resemblance that required imagination. It was defined, balanced, almost exact in its structure. The light at its center did not scatter randomly. It concentrated, giving the impression of focus, of attention. People began to gather, pointing, recording, speaking in hushed voices. Yet beneath that curiosity was something deeper, a feeling that this was not accidental. It did not feel like nature forming shapes. It felt like something forming a message. In that moment, the sky was no longer distant. It felt aware. Proverbs 15:3 offers a perspective that suddenly feels tangible. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. When those words are read alongside such a sight, the image of an eye in the heavens begins to carry a meaning far beyond coincidence. It suggests not randomness, but presence, not chance, but awareness. The idea that nothing is unseen, that every action, every moment exists under watch, becomes difficult to dismiss when the sky itself appears to reflect that truth so clearly. Some may call it a rare formation, a coincidence of wind and light shaping clouds into something familiar. Yet that explanation struggles to account for the precision, the stillness, and the timing of such a formation. It is not just the shape, but the feeling it leaves behind, a quiet weight that settles in the mind. It does not fade quickly because it does not feel empty. It feels intentional, as though it carried meaning meant to be recognized rather than ignored. Psalm 33:18 deepens that sense of awareness. Behold, the eye of the Lord is on those who fear him, on those who hope in his mercy. When the sky itself seems to reflect an eye looking down, the message becomes harder to overlook. It is not only about being seen, but about being known, about living in a moment where nothing is hidden. And if that is true, then such a sign is not meant to frighten alone, but to awaken. Because if the heavens can form something so clear, so focused, and so impossible to ignore, then perhaps it is not just a spectacle, but a reminder that we are not unseen, not forgotten, and not outside of a greater watch. And if that eye was not just a coincidence, but a sign placed above for a moment in time, then the question it leaves behind is not whether it was real, but whether we are ready to be seen as we truly are. Because once the pattern begins, it doesn't slow down, it multiplies. 6. Fire falling from heaven again and again. Across different parts of the world, the sky has not remained silent. It has begun to react. In just a matter of days, fireballs have torn through the atmosphere, blazing across the darkness with a force that refuses to be ignored. In Texas, one of them did not simply fall. It moved, shifting direction mid-air, rising, dropping, changing course, as if something was guiding it. Witnesses did not describe it as random. They described it as controlled, something that did not behave the way it was supposed to. And it wasn't just one. It kept happening, again and again and again. The pattern is what unsettles people the most. These are not isolated flashes lost in time. They are appearing in succession, stacking on top of each other until they begin to feel connected. Videos spread rapidly, each one capturing fire cutting across the sky, each one leaving behind the same reaction: confusion first, then unease. The distance between events begins to shrink, and with it, the sense that something is accelerating. This is no longer a single moment. It is a sequence that continues to build. Luke 21:11 speaks with a weight that now feels immediate, and there will be great earthquakes in various places, and famines and pestilences. And there will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. The phrase, fearful sights, no longer feels abstract. It feels visible. It feels present. When the heavens repeat themselves, not once but many times, it begins to resemble a message that is no longer subtle. Some will say these are natural, fragments of space, entering the atmosphere and burning as they fall. But that explanation struggles to match what people are actually seeing. It is not only the fire, it is the movement, the timing, and the frequency. The way they appear does not feel scattered, it feels arranged, not random, but repeated with intent. Revelation 8:10 sharpens that warning even further. Then the third angel sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch. And it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The image is clear, something burning, something descending, something that does not come quietly. When such scenes begin to echo in the sky above us, even in smaller forms, they begin to carry a meaning that is difficult to ignore. What changes everything is not the first event, but the repetition. Because repetition turns a moment into a signal. And if the sky has already begun repeating itself, then the question is no longer whether something is coming, but how close it already is. 7. The face that appeared in silence inside the church. In a quiet church in India, during what should have been an ordinary service, something began to unfold, not with force, but with a presence that slowly filled the room. There was no sudden interruption, no shock, only a moment when attention shifted and something impossible began to take shape. On the consecrated host, an image started to emerge, not imagined, not suggested, but visible, forming gradually into a face that held the eyes of everyone who saw it. No fear, no chaos, only silence, the kind that makes people fall to their knees. As the image became clearer, it resembled the face of Jesus Christ, not abstract, but defined, carrying a familiarity that stirred something deep within those present. People did not react with confusion. They bowed, they wept, they prayed, because what stood before them did not feel like a phenomenon, it felt like a visitation. The air grew heavy with emotion, yet filled with a quiet peace that did not need to announce itself. It did not demand attention, it drew it, gently, but powerfully. John 6:51 speaks in a way that now feels alive within that moment. I am the living bread, which came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. And the bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give for the life of the world. When a face appears upon the bread itself, those words no longer remain distant teachings. They become something experienced, something witnessed, something that transforms belief into something tangible. Over time, the image was examined, questioned, studied, yet it remained, resisting simple explanation. Some searched for answers in the natural world, but the clarity and persistence of the form continued to draw people back, not to argue, but to encounter. Pilgrims came not looking for proof, but for presence, for a moment where faith could be seen, not just felt. What mattered was not only what appeared, but what it awakened. Hebrews 11:1 offers a deeper understanding. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Yet here, the unseen seemed to cross into the visible, not to replace faith, but to deepen it. It did not remove mystery, it intensified it, turning belief into something lived rather than assumed. When something so quiet carries such weight, it does not leave the same way it arrived. It remains, not in the image itself, but in the hearts of those who witnessed it. Because if the divine chooses to reveal itself not through fear, but through stillness, then the message is not one of terror, but of invitation. And if this was not meant to shake the world, but to call it back, then the question it leaves behind is not whether we saw it, but whether we are willing to respond. 8. The book that speaks of the end. Deep in the land of Israel, something was uncovered that did not feel like history being revealed. It felt like a warning being released. An ancient book, worn by time, written in a language not fully understood, surfaced under the hands of archaeologists. Its markings were unclear, yet strangely familiar, as if the message it carried was not meant to be read easily, but recognized. This was not just another artifact, it felt heavier, as though it had been waiting for a moment like this to be found. As fragments of its meaning began to emerge, what stood out was not just the mystery, but the resemblance. The text spoke of strange birds appearing in unusual numbers, skies shifting into unnatural colors, and events unfolding across the world that disturb what people once believed to be stable. These were not scattered ideas, they formed a sequence, a pattern that felt deliberate. What unsettles most is not what is written, but how closely it mirrors what is already happening. The more it was studied, the more it stopped feeling ancient and started feeling current. Daniel 12:4 carries a weight that now feels impossible to ignore. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase. A message sealed until a specific moment suggests that there are truths not meant to be understood until the right time arrives. When something like this surfaces now, it no longer feels accidental. It feels appointed. Some urge caution, pointing to uncertainty, incomplete translations, and interpretations that may be too quick. But even uncertainty cannot erase what is forming. The repetition of signs, the alignment of details, and the timing of its discovery create a pressure that continues to build. It is no longer about understanding every word. It is about recognizing how many pieces are beginning to connect. Revelation 20:12 deepens that weight into something final. And I saw the dead, small and great, standing before God, and books were opened. And another book was opened, which is the book of life. The image is clear, a moment when everything hidden is revealed, when nothing remains concealed. When a book appears, describing signs that are already unfolding, it begins to feel less like history and more like evidence. What changes everything is not the existence of the book, but the timing of its appearance. Because the signs it describes are no longer distant, they are visible, repeating, and increasing. What was once written in silence is now echoing through reality with growing intensity. And when the written word begins to match the world this closely, the question is no longer whether it is true, but how much time is left before it is fulfilled. 9. Rising image of Qadist in a land that refuses to lose faith. In Lebanon, something has begun to rise, not yet complete, not yet standing in its final form, yet already carrying a presence that reaches far beyond its unfinished structure. Reports spread of one of the largest statues of Jesus Christ in the Middle East being built. Its foundation set, its form slowly taking shape against the skyline. Even in its incomplete state, it draws attention, not because of what it is, but because of what it represents. It is not just construction. It feels like a declaration in progress, something being prepared in full view of a watching world. For many in the region, this is not simply a project, it is a sign of endurance. In a place marked by conflict, uncertainty, and shifting realities, the decision to raise an image of Christ carries weight. It speaks of faith that has not disappeared, even under pressure. People speak about it not as a monument alone, but as a reminder, something that points beyond present struggles, towards something unshaken. The structure is still forming, yet its meaning is already alive, shaping conversations, drawing attention, and quietly strengthening belief. John 12:32 gives deeper meaning to what is being built. And I, if I am lifted up from the earth, will draw all peoples to myself, even before it is completed. The act of raising this figure has already begun to draw eyes and hearts upward. It becomes less about stone and design and more about direction, about where people choose to look in moments of uncertainty. The higher it rises, the clearer that message becomes, not forced but felt. Some may see it as a cultural or symbolic effort, another structure among many across the world. Yet, its timing cannot be ignored. It is being built in a period when the world itself feels unsettled, when signs and questions seem to multiply. In that context, it does not feel random. It feels intentional, as though faith is not only being remembered, but restored in a visible and undeniable way. The fact that it is unfinished only adds to that meaning, as if the message itself is still unfolding. Psalm 121, 1-2, carries a quiet strength that echoes through this moment. I will lift up my eyes to the hills, from whence comes my help. My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. As the structure rises from those very hills, those words take on a living form. The eyes are drawn upward, not by completion, but by anticipation, by the sense that something greater is still being revealed. 10. Faith so strong no storm could move. On the slopes of Slemish Mountain in Ireland, the conditions were not meant for gathering, but for retreat. winds surged at nearly 110 kilometers per hour, tearing across the landscape with a force that made even standing difficult. The cold pressed in, the air cut sharply, and the ground offered little stability. Yet on this very mountain, a group of Catholic men chose to climb, not for comfort, but for purpose. They came on the day honoring St. Patrick to stand where he once stood as a slave, enduring harsh weather year after year, praying not for escape alone, but for strength and solace in God. There was no shelter to protect them, no calm moment to wait for. The storm did not ease as they gathered. It intensified, testing every step, every breath. Some leaned into the wind just to remain upright. Others knelt against the force that tried to push them back. Their prayers were not soft or distant. They were urgent, carried through the roaring air, rising despite resistance. This was not tradition performed in ease. It was faith expressed under pressure, a deliberate choice to remain when everything around them demanded retreat. In that moment, the mountain became more than a place. It became a reflection of endurance, of belief that does not depend on favorable conditions. Matthew 7:25 speaks with a clarity that feels alive in such a scene. And the rain descended, the floods came, and the winds blew and beat on that house, and it did not fall, for it was founded on the rock. What stood on that mountain was not a structure, but something deeper, a faith rooted firmly enough to withstand forces that would break anything built on weaker ground. The storm did not silence them, it revealed them. Some may say it is simply devotion, a yearly act of remembrance carried forward through generations. Yet that explanation does not capture the intensity of the moment, nor the decision behind it. To stand in such conditions is not routine, it is intentional. It reflects a belief that faith is not proven in comfort, but in resistance. It shows that when the world becomes unstable, some do not withdraw, they draw closer to what they believe. Ephesians 6:13 delivers a call that echoes through that mountain. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. To stand is not passive, it is a declaration. It is a refusal to be moved by fear, by pressure, or by circumstance. On Slemish, standing became testimony, a visible act that speaks louder than words. There is something powerful about a sign that is not yet finished, because it reminds us that the story itself is still unfolding. But while this image slowly rises in silence, somewhere else, faith is standing against the storm and refusing to break. In the end, it is not the signs themselves that define this moment, but how we choose to stand when everything around us begins to change. 10 moments, different in form yet united in meaning. A dark swarm moving as one, 2 suns breaking the order of the sky, a ship emerging like a memory of judgment, and a red glow covering the night. An eye watching from above, fire falling again and again, a sacred face appearing in silence, an ancient book aligning with the present, a rising image of Christ, and faith standing firm in the storm. These are not random events. They are forming a pattern, one that echoes what has long been written in Scripture. This is no longer just curiosity. It is a call to awaken. These signs are not here to confuse us, but to redirect us, to remind us where our faith belongs. In moments like this, what matters is not fear, but response. Take a moment to pray, to return your heart to God, and to place your trust in Him while there is still time. Because the question is no longer what is happening, but whether we are ready for it. If this message has touched you, don't scroll past it. Leave a prayer or even a single word in the comments, something that reflects where your heart is right now. Share this with someone who might need to hear it, and stay connected so you don't miss what may come next. Thank you for being here, and may God watch over you and your family, protect you, guide you, and fill your home with peace. Amen.
Israel has launched preemptive airstrikes against the Islamic Republic.
We're already substantially ahead of our time projection.
Same time, and so when the Iranians save their missiles and launch all at the same time
on the hotels, airports, apartments, and other civilian targets of.
Do you realize the conflict between the US and Iran didn't just happen by chance, and the Bible saw this coming a long, long time ago? So, are you curious what the outcome of this conflict might be. And what does it mean in the bigger timeline as humanity keeps moving closer to the end times? In today's video, we're going to talk it through together and look for the full truth. But one thing we can all be sure of: God is right. Everything is under His control, and His power has no limits. So, before we dive in and pull back those curtains of truth, like always, please leave a prayer in the comments below. It just shows that you still put your big trust in Jesus. And now, so you don't have to wait any longer, let's jump right in with the first event in the timeline: current world situation. From the latest breaking news coming in from countries all over, it's March 2026. The Middle East is on fire. Heavy airstrikes are tearing through the sky over Iran as the United States and Israel launch a major military operation starting February 28. More than 2,000 targets have been reported destroyed, from key nuclear facilities to important command centers. In the middle of all this chaos, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has been confirmed killed. The news spread like a political earthquake, shaking the whole region. Tehran is in smoke. Tel Aviv's air raid sirens are blaring U.S. bases in Kuwait, UAE, and Qatar are taking retaliatory missile hits. Iran is hitting back hard, launching waves of ballistic missiles through the night sky, forcing Israel's Iron Dome system to work at full capacity. Hezbollah from Lebanon has joined in, opening another front north of Israel. Hundreds of people have died, including 3 American soldiers in Kuwait. President Donald Trump says the operation might last 4 or 5 weeks, but analysts are warning, if the spiral keeps escalating, that timeline could just be the beginning. Financial markets are rocking. Oil prices have shot way up. The UN Security Council held an emergency meeting. Russia and China issued strong warnings. The whole world is holding its breath over the risk of a direct clash between major powers. The fear of nuclear weapons isn't some far-off idea anymore. It's a real question right now. Is this the spark for a much bigger war? Is the Middle East sliding into a chain reaction that can't be stopped? Amid the smoke, fire, and non-stop news reports, a bigger question comes up. Is this just geopolitics, or is something deeper going on? The Bible mentions Persia, the old name for Iran, as a player in the final events. Ezekiel 38:5 says, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, a coalition against Israel in the last days. Today, Iran backs Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and keeps a strong strategic tie with Russia. Those pieces are fitting together in a way that surprises a lot of people with how accurate it seems. Is this just a coincidence of history, or part of a much larger picture starting to show? As cities like Tehran, Dubai, and Tel Aviv shake from explosions, and the world talks about World War III, are we seeing the opening pages of a decisive time? Time feels like it's speeding up, and events once thought impossible are happening right in front of us. The standoff between the US, Israel, and Iran isn't just another international headline. It's a flashpoint that could reshape the global order. And if those prophecies aren't random, this goes way beyond politics and military action. Where do we stand in all this flow? To find the answer, we need to go back to the events involving Persia, which is today's Iran, that the Bible mentioned thousands of years ago. Persia, in ancient prophecy, amid the flood of news reports and non-stop air raid sirens, have you ever wondered, has the clock really started counting down? And is humanity getting closer to what the Lord warned about? As smoke and fire cover the Middle East and world powers move their fleets into place, faith is no longer some distant idea. It becomes the only solid ground in the middle of this historic earthquake. We're not just talking geopolitics here. This is an invitation to look deeper into words written more than 2,000 years ago. Let's go back about 2,600 years. In Ezekiel 38:1-6, the Bible says, Son of man, set your face against Gog, of the land of Magog. Persia, Cush, and Put are with them. Persia is today's Iran. The prophecy describes a powerful alliance from the north and east coming against Israel like a storm. Ezekiel 38:9 goes on, "You will advance like a storm. You will be like a cloud covering the land, you and all your troops." End quote. That picture isn't just poetry. It's the language of an overwhelming, covering, crushing attack. Look at today. Iran isn't acting alone. Hezbollah in Lebanon has opened a front on Israel's northern border. Armed groups backed by Tehran are stirring up trouble in several areas. The strategic ties between Iran and Russia keep getting stronger, from military cooperation to sharing defense technology. Israel, the nation that was once scattered and in exile back in Ezekiel's time, now exists and is described in Ezekiel 38:11 as a land of unwalled villages, a peaceful and unsuspecting people. Some thoughtful Christians notice that this ancient picture is starting to match up in ways worth thinking about. Do you see the connections between then and now becoming clearer? The prophecy doesn't stop at describing the alliance. It also talks about direct intervention by God Himself. Ezekiel 38:22 says, "I will execute judgment on him with plague and bloodshed. I will rain down torrents of rain, hailstones, fire, and burning sulfur on him and his troops." This isn't a war that ends with a political deal. It's supernatural intervention, showing God's ultimate power. While the world talks missiles, defense systems, and cutting-edge weapons, the Bible points our eyes higher, to where judgment belongs to God alone. What's striking is that when Ezekiel wrote these words, Israel wasn't even an independent nation like it is today. The people were in exile. Yet the prophecy speaks not just of their return, but of a final showdown right on that same land. Israel's very existence, surrounded by enemies, is already a huge historical marker. And with Iran, that is Persia, standing out in today's alliances against Israel, many people are starting to ask, could history really be moving close to the stage the Bible once described? Still, the main point isn't fear. It's recognizing who is really in control of the flow of events. These prophecies weren't given to scare us, but to confirm that God is never caught off guard by anything. If things written thousands of years ago are beginning to line up with today, that doesn't show the power of nations. It shows the accuracy of His word. Believers trust that every geopolitical shift may just be setting the stage for a bigger chapter in God's plan of redemption. So amid all the media noise and tough talk from leaders, one truth stays the same: God is still in charge. He isn't limited by national borders or military strength. He is the one who has spoken, and history must follow His word. Today's confrontation may be just the prelude, maybe the beginning of a deeper prophetic period, but it is surely not outside His hand. If that's true, then the real question isn't who will win on the battlefield, it's where we stand in that bigger plan. Faith doesn't mean ignoring reality. It means looking straight at reality with the confidence that the Most High is still ruling. And as these signs keep appearing, the door to spiritual understanding may be opening wider than ever for anyone willing to seek. Old prophecies about the destruction of Elam, an ancient part of what's now Iran. When the bow of Elam gets broken, history doesn't just repeat itself. It rings like an alarm bell for our own time. What's happening isn't simply another military fight. It's a shock wave that could shake the very foundations of world security, and you're living right in the middle of it. As the news keeps showing airstrikes, nuclear sites getting hit, and chaos spreading everywhere, those old prophecies suddenly feel a lot more real and worth thinking about. Back around 600 BC, the prophet Jeremiah delivered a shocking message about Elam, that ancient land in what's today Iran. In Jeremiah 49:34-35, the Bible says, "This is the word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah the prophet about Elam. I will break the bow of Elam, the mainstay of their might. The bow stands for military power, the ability to attack or defend. When that bow is snapped,